Hello, everyone. It's Nairi here. Welcome to episode 2 of the Billiards Roundtable, Femme Creatives in Her Frame. Today, we've gathered to uplift the stories, the work, and the wisdom of incredible women who are pouring into their careers, our creative spaces, and our communities. The Femme Creatives who have joined us are diving into everything from artistic process to personal growth and what it means to create and lead in their own ways through today's world, unapologetically and authentically. Honored to be joined by our select group of artists who bring passion, tenacity, and purpose to every space they enter. Vinia Alani, Angelique Sidina, Chantrell Lewis, Chiara Pichardo, Alexis Proctor-Turner, and myself, Nairi Poole. Let's begin. Okay, why don't we start off with an open question? There's no need to be overly polite. If you had to choose a color or a texture to describe your current creative season, what would it be and why?
I don't mind kicking. I have so many colors right here. I kind of am like, if I don't have something to say, like with all these colors on my screen and on me. Hey y'all, my name's Angelique. I use she, they pronouns, and if I had to think of a color or colors or textures that resemble my current I guess creative feeling or emotion, if you will, like you were saying. I think it's quite literally what's on my screen. It's kind of everywhere, but warm. Like I'm really feeling like pink and blue, but on the warmer side, not the cooler tones for some reason. And I think because of the work that I'm diving into, it's practicing like what it's like to be uplifted. I think I'm just really drawn to warm and bright colors right now. Also, I'm manifesting good weather. I know it's low key giving heat wave, at least in Rhode Island. I'm like, oh my God, it's quite literally taking my breath away by Beyonce. Um, but that's kind of what I'm drawn to right now. Bright colors and a mixture and a mesh.
I'm in my soft pink era right now. Usually I'm very bright and loud, and I'm giving myself permission not to be what people think of when they think of bigger Black women. I'm sitting in my softness artistically and in every room I'm in. It's soft pink because it's also like light, because I think I am very filled with light. But yeah, that's it.
I can't choose between black or white, but the whole thought about it is I like the thought of the blank canvas. I don't know if you guys ever seen Bob Ross, as in the painter. Okay, well, he starts with like a super blank canvas, and then all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, it's like this beautiful landscape of trees, happy trees, and like water and all this nice tranquil imagery. And I don't know, I like the thought of that, of creating something out of nothing, like just something that came through with the whole process, and at the end it's beautiful, but it started with a blank, clean slate.
And for me, I would say like a soft yellow, so kind of compliment with the soft yellow, maybe even a little bit brighter, because I think I'm kind of in my era as an artist and as a woman where I don't want to do anything that isn't soft. I think I've created enough art that has required tears, and I'm ready for some art that brings joy. It made me so sad or so sad.
I think if I were to add a color as well or like a texture, I think I'd be moving through like a good rich green right now, like not wholly emeraldy, maybe like a little bit of a forest green, because I feel like I'm in this space of like still learning and moving through new spaces as I'm moving into like an education realm as well. So I feel like I'm still picking up a lot, but there's still like a lot of texture and earthiness up under the kind of everything that I've learned in order to be able to teach it to other people. So I feel like I'm sitting in that space of this kind of green bean life. Like Like, I feel like that's just the era that I'm in the middle of. So as we've talked a little bit about colors and textures, there are going to be many colors, textures, seasons of lives as we move through them, as we move through our artistry. What, if anything, pointed has shaped the way that you show up as an artist today? Was it a moment? Was it a person? Was it a place? But if there's something specific that's pointed to how you show up, what is that thing?
I had a moment in grad school because I graduated from Columbia with my master's in acting a year ago, which is crazy. Because that year out is scary, y'all. But my first year, I came with every stigma, stereotype, every idea of what I am from people weighed on my body. And my teacher, Ron Van Loo, he spoke to me after a final my first year and was like, "So, do you think you're supporting or leading?" And I was like, "Supporting, yeah, I'm the funny fat friend. That's me. Like, put me in, coach." And he was like, "Oh, so you're not going to work?" And I was like, "What do you, huh?" He was like, nothing about your essence and aura is giving supporting. You're not that. If you think that, then you're going to have a few jobs here and not a career. It might be a race, but not a career. But at the moment you accept your essence, you're going to work. And that honestly changed my life. I approached myself softer and lighter and able to see myself in different roles before. Before that, it was like one thing, but now it's like, what can I do? You know?
Well, I was gonna say something else, but as when she just said her moment, I was like, wow, it made me think of another moment than what I was gonna say. But okay, well, there was this one time my manager sent me a video. It was kind of similar to this. And it was of Neil Patrick Harris. I don't know if you guys seen it, where he talks about having a career as an actor, and he talked about how it's like how the way waves come. And how, like, when you're surfing, you have to like swim out to the wave and you see a good one coming, you're like, ooh, you get ready, you jump up, and if you're in it, you can ride it. And it's nice and it's great and you're going through it. And it's it's one of the highs. That's like, let's say we book a big job, or you're going through all the press and all this stuff, and then that wave ends and then you have to swim out again. And he was like, if we thought about it more in that way, the waiting, which is us swimming out, waiting for a wave, it doesn't necessarily mean like your career is over. It's just you're waiting for the next wave, but you're still swimming, you're still trying, you're still looking out, and that made me look at my career a lot more different than what it was before, where it was like, oh, it's so hard to get a job. What am I doing? This and that. And it's just true. We just got to keep swimming.
I have thoughts coming up of one of my favorite authors, Adrienne Marie Brown, who is one of the artists who talks about how microcosms contribute to macrocosms, and how in little ways how what we do affects grander scales and grander pictures. And I think for a long time, as an artist in general, I was so scattered all over the place, and every single way that I just liked creating. Like, I was a person who wanted to write, I was a person who wanted to paint and draw, I wanted to act, I wanted to sing, I wanted to, like, I'm just now coming into a place where I can look at myself as sort of an intellectual as well, and move into spaces of like teaching and research as well. But I think for the longest time, I saw those many pieces as being a problem, or being too scattered to actually function in a way that would serve me in a career. But I think the moment that I would read into Adrienne's work a little further, I could see how all those different things were supporting me to be like a multifaceted artist, and not just pigeonholing myself into like, okay, I need to do one thing, I need to focus on one thing, or I won't be successful in anything. And I think being able to erase that sort of judgment moved me towards a place of being able to show up authentically, rather than trying to show up in some way that was going to get me to this imagined place of success.
I need recognition for what I've done in this movement of freedom and liberation for Blacks across America. Now, when you think of Coretta, what do you think?
Yes, and amen to everything everyone is saying in this space. I love it. Uplifting Brown's work. I am heavily inspired by their work, specifically pleasure activism. And I feel like, yes, I got the audiobook, I got the hard copy. It is right here, y'all. Hold on. My hard copy of this book is right here. Like, pleasure activism is my truth.
It's a
Like,
great book.
it's so good. And I feel like when I read that, that's where I had a turn of at least how I show up in the work. I'm currently a fourth year doctoral candidate at Northeastern. And I specifically focus on joy for Black women in femmes and testimonial style theater. And I feel like Brown, at least in pleasure activism, and you see it in emergent strategies, even Octavia's Blood, how they take a framework such as Audre Lorde's theory of the erotic, like how they find themselves in current literatures and current ways of knowing of Black feminist epistemology and creating a framework that speaks to their liberation. And I feel like it was an eye-opening moment for me as a storyteller and embodied practitioner of acknowledging that, hey, like you have the creative freedom to say, I can see that the frameworks that currently exist don't speak to the liberation that I'm speaking for. So what happens when we add to the collective and say yes and amen to what is currently out there and put yourself in the work and like hearing y'all's stories. Like I'm very inspired by what's happening in this space already, like a few minutes in. It makes me think of other players, like, even thinking of Susan Lori Parks, like thinking of how like she's like, if you don't find yourself in the work, create the work. And then like it's just so beautiful how especially we as like Black women and femmes continue to create ourselves and see ourselves even when the writing is not there, but we are still saying that we are in the narrative and actually you come from us. And so I think that like the just like I just feel like this like going back to like just like how Brown like puts out there like, hey, like go back to the self is such a beautiful way and a beautiful circle to see yourself within the space. And I feel like once I like got more into her work and theory of like pleasure and what does that look like to show up for yourself in that domain, completely changed how I show up in the room.
Yeah, Angelique, there's a term in that I've also read in her books, radical joy. And that may not be something that our audience or people at large are really familiar with. Is it something that you could tell us a little bit about and what that may look like in practice for you?
Ooh, well, I feel like I would love to hear your take on it because I feel like I'm deep in it's so beautiful to hear the other humans of the collective.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah,
how
well,
you see the work. Like I'm all for hearing how if you feel comfortable, how you interpret it.
yeah,
If
no,
you
no,
feel
of
comfortable.
course. Radical joy as a concept, if I'm paraphrasing this well, is the active seeking and pursuit of and practice of expressing and exploring your joy as a means of sort of what is it? Fighting back or being in your spaces in your full expanded self. The word will come to me when it comes to me. If it doesn't, then it wasn't supposed to come. But that radical joy and choosing to seek out joy as a means of staying resilient in a world that consistently seeks to sort of wipe joy from the face of like being. I find that when I feel really exhausted and run down by my work happening, by feeling like I'm not being paid enough or feeling like I'm too in the middle of many projects and feeling like, at least within American culture, that everything sort of seeks to tear down the marginalized groups, whether it be, those in LGBTQIA land, those of us who are POC, femme humans, like that constant seeking of pushing aside, being able to sit up in the middle of that is radical joy, essentially. What that looks like for me is it looks like sessions like this of getting to talk with other people who have, like, do similar work and lifting up other people and seeing the beautiful things that they're up to. It looks like doing my makeup. It looks like putting on an outfit I really like. It looks like getting the expensive sparkly water. It's just little things like that. In those small ways, I'm practicing radical joy as a means of rebellion. Like, I get to have my joy too. Anybody else want to talk about their joy and how they're exploring it lately?
Okay, so I recently wrote a poem called My Son Laughs in His Sleep, and I got a chance to perform it. And I haven't performed poetry probably since I was in undergrad. And it was really centered around like our birth being an act of resilience. And I talk about like how he was a rebel during his time in the NICU because he found those moments to laugh and to giggle while he was going through all those things, and how I fought back all of those different things he was diagnosed with enjoying his joy and his smiles. And so I feel like this kind of connects me to the last question too, where like as an artist, I feel like I'm walking into rooms differently now because I realize like nothing really matters as much as I was making it matter before. Like there were so many things that took so much space in my mind and in my heart, like silly things like a dance class or passing a test. Like those things, they matter so much at that point in my life. But then I had an experience of becoming a mom. And I was like, oh, you know what? To me, as an artist, those things, and as a woman, those things just did not matter as much as I thought they did. And so now, you know, when I'm doing auditions or I'm writing something, I just kind of tried not to make a bigger deal out of them than they need to be. And I feel like that's protected my mental health so much, and it's given me an opportunity to really like step into my joy continuously, even if I'm working or even if I'm pursuing something that I may not get. Like I still get to be happy regardless. Yeah.
And I love that that's also a moment that was really profound for you, getting a chance and an opportunity to share a piece that you wrote, you know, something that came from you, that came from your experience, your mind, your body, a shared moment with someone who means so much to you, your son. Um, as we're talking about that sort of sharing of voice that happens when we get to engage with other people, Alexis, you've said that acting is a way to amplify unheard voices. Can you tell us about a time, or maybe the first time, that you felt the power of your voice while acting?
What's up, Nala? It's not a good time.
My bad, Mavis. I would not have called, but that new charge when they shipped me this in, and they got all the wrong sizes. The tag says 2X, but it's giving 12.
What are you talking about? I just maxed out the company credit card on all those dresses. Is this a joke? Are you trying to be funny?
Wait, are you freaking out? Because if you freak out, I'm a freak out. I'm an empath.
Yes, I know.
I think one of I'll speak about them briefly. The first one was during the pandemic. I graduated from undergrad in 2020. So graduation was on Zoom. I was at my mama's house and I was depressed. And then my mom just kept reminding me, like, it's also kind of like radical joy. How do you find joy in this time? Because it was a racial epidemic happening, then the pandemic happening. We were being attacked mentally, physically, emotionally, left and right, right? Still we are. But in 2020, I decided to get on Zoom with a bunch of people, Black creatives from undergrads, different undergrads, musical theater, all across the country, and arrange music just so we can have community, fellowship, and create in a time when none of us could do it. Broadway was shut down. We couldn't do anything. So we arranged a bunch of songs and then put them on Instagram. And I was designing, editing these videos with our boxes next to each other. And it was about labor, free labor, it was all that. So that was one. The second one is right now, I was very blessed to be in a show called Survival of the Thickest. I'm recurring in it. And being loud about my Blackness and my thickness has already apparently touched people's hearts. And I was able to do a Teen Vogue feature and talk about like how, as a bigger Black girl, I want to be in rom-coms. I want to, We're in the rain, pick me up and spin me around, kiss me. Like I want it all, and I feel like it's time that that narrative gets told. We should romanticize everybody, every kind of body, and see it in such a beautiful way. And I think I'm not fully, I don't know what I'm saying. Like I'm not fully doing exactly what I want to do with that, but I'm being pushed into rooms where I can speak more about it. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that we've been already rolling into really cool projects, excuse me. Kiara, you've been on School Spirits and you've been doing work with Despertando Prospositos, excuse me. And it sounds like this thing is already happening in the Land Alexis of where you're talking about not only the work that you're doing, the artistry that's happening, but also the advocacy that's happening too. Kiara, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you may do or how you balance out your artistry as well as your advocacy?
Yeah, I mean, well, the radical joy question, I was gonna say where I find joy is like with God. And so I be praying a lot. I be worship musicking in the car and while I'm showering, everywhere I go. I talk to him all the time. And I feel like that's helped me stay grounded and grateful. I feel like being grateful is like a really good mindset, especially in this kind of career where everything's kind of seems like the lottery and you're going through hundreds of auditions and you get one maybe yes out of 50. And he's just been a nice rock. And how do I balance the two? I think it's just sort of keeping my head in the word and just like remembering that it's not about me. Like what I'm doing, it's not just for me, it's like for others. Like I want to help others. And if I can do that with acting and outside of acting, that's my main goal. Like my main goal isn't just to work, like I want to help people. And yeah, that's kind of like what we're called to do anyway, and in any way that we can. And I've in my prayers, I guess this is a little more intimate. I've asked him to help me help others, like bless me so I can bless others. And that's the point, man. Yeah. And it's Despertando Propósitos. That was a mission ship, a mission trip group that they go and they do that. So they help get resources together like food, toiletries, things like that. And they do an evangelical event where they just sort of pray on people and bring a word of motivation. And yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that sounds gorgeous because it sounds like you're getting the opportunity that still like you were saying, by being able to soak up the blessings that are happening in your work and how you relate to your work, you can then go out and share with other people as well and be a light by just being yourself and sharing what keeps you lit in order to maybe extend that to someone else who may need to find their avenue of staying lit and uplifted as well. Chantrell, you've done a lot in education and research and performance. How do those avenues blend and what continues to pull you towards the work?
Well, I mean, in my education work, it's all theater and music. And so, that's where I started, like with training. And so I feel like it's just a part of, I guess, like you were saying with advocacy, like I'm just advocating to continue quality arts education. So that way, any student that I work with has an opportunity to perform professionally, or to have, if they choose to, they have the skills and the training to move forward as professional musicians or actors or choreographers or producers or any of those things that I am working to train students to do. So they blend in that way. So I'll go and I'll do that work, and then I'll go to my own rehearsal right after. So that really, I think that my different avenues cross paths because I always say that I want my students to know that they have a teacher who knows what's up. I never want my students to feel like they have to lead or that they have to be in charge or that they have to figure out how to build a set all on their own. That they should feel comfort in knowing that they have somebody in the space who's done it a million times, who can lead and teach them how to do it. And so, I think maybe more so it crosses paths in that way where my students know they have a professional and they can lean on me to make sure that their work is of good quality. Yes. And so I always used to say, like, when I was growing up, oh, I want to own a performing arts school. And I think what I have right now with my nonprofit, and we recently started an orchestra here in California to provide free music classes and free instruments to underserved youth. And we've been rocking it out for a year now. And I really do feel like, this part of my work is like a different wing of it, but it all just kind of somehow magically flows together. And I still get to be a musician. I still get to do my own performances, and I still get to create amazing performance opportunity and training for people who maybe wouldn't have that chance. So I just kind of do it all, put it all in the pot, stir it up. We got some stew, something.
I'm saying, look, and you're not going to skip over it over here. What is the name of the nonprofit?
So my nonprofit is Jar of Sunshine Incorporated. And the name of our orchestra is the New Hope Orange County Orchestra. We started kind of as a sister organization to the Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles. So yeah, check us out.
Love it. Yeah, because we want to make sure, like, for those who are also in the area, or if they want to support this nonprofit as well, that they have, an awareness of like what that is, where they can find it. So thank you for talking a little bit about it and sharing.
I promised myself I wouldn't get divorced like my mom and dad.
Can you? Really?
I know when I do my work with my students, I'm currently based in Massachusetts with a theater company, Shakespeare and Company, and every fall we do work with a fall festival of Shakespeare, which is a festival that we go in and work with 10 different schools, and we put on a production of whichever Shakespeare play with them for 8 weeks. And then at the conclusion of those 8 weeks, we get together and they perform those shows for each other. And the basis of that festival is that it's a celebration, not a competition. So these students get an opportunity to show up and expand in their work in a way that encourages them to cheer for other people at the same time that they get to have their own big wins. They get to do things that they're excited about, and they get to dig into some work that has sort of meaty and thick language to get through so that they can actively work towards finding pieces of themselves that they might not always have language for as they're still developing and understanding what works for them and what doesn't. And I feel like one of the greatest gifts of doing that job and being a part of that work is showing up as myself as their teacher, saying that, like, hey, you can be yourself when you come into a room. The pieces of yourself that you bring into the room are important. Interacting with your peers in a way that you're working to understand them in the same way that you're understanding yourself is also important. And so I feel like in those small ways of encouraging them to be their most authentic selves is one of the ways that I balance out doing active work for the company that I'm at, and also making sure our students know that it's not just doing the work, it's how you do the work too. And as I'm talking about that, it's reminding me of this, like the big changes that we can see them go through and experience. So I wanted to ask Benia, you talk a lot about transformation through artistry. What's one way that your creative philosophy has evolved recently?
It's going to connect to something that I wanted to say about what both you, Nairi, and Chantrell were saying about education. I work in public education as an English teacher, so I'm not an arts teacher, but I think one of the biggest transformations has been in how, for a long time, I'm going to speak in drafts. It's going to take me a while to make my point, but I will get there eventually.
Here for it.
For the longest time, I really did not feel like me wanting to be an artist really had any purpose. I was like, what am I really giving to the world by being an artist, by going and playing pretend on stage with a bunch of other grown ass adults? What am I really giving to the world by doing that, right? And then I started teaching English, and I realized that we live in a generation of kids who can't even like fathom having their own opinion. And I mean that in the most literal sense, right? Where I'll ask them something that is pretty across the board, and they'll ask me questions in return as far as like, well, what do you want me to say? And I'll go, I want you to say whatever it is you think. Well, I don't know. You don't know what you think? No. And then, you can kind of break it down, but they're just like, they live in such a systematic culture. Like everything is like technological, and it like most of my students were in elementary school and middle school through COVID. So they did a bunch of COVID learning. They're over tested, and that's common knowledge. But it's gotten to a point where kids, like, in order to even go and pursue any sort of craft, right, you kind of have to have something to say, or at least value your own opinion, or at least have one, even if you don't value it just yet. And arts can maybe pull that out of you. You got to have one first. You got to believe in having your own opinion first. And they don't have any opinions. And I think what makes me a great teacher directly correlates to me being an artist. It directly correlates to me being an actor, being an artist. And the way my philosophy has changed in a nutshell, kind of, is I am an artist, I think, more for others than I am for myself. Of course, I love what I do. And I do have my, internal selfish reasons about being an artist, because being an actor has made me a better person. I would not be as good of a person now if I was not an actor. I think that there's so much that I've been able to give others by way of being an artist, and in an education system where, I'll be frank, in public schools right now, a lot of it is administrative issues, but even, it's coming down to the teachers as well. I mean, with all the strain being put on us, and to be honest, we don't decide what we teach ever. Like, everything is decided for us, down to like how long we have to teach, what exactly we're going to teach. So when everybody goes, oh, they're indoctrinating, we don't indoctrinate. We don't even get to decide what we teach the kids. We don't even make that decision. That ain't got nothing to do with us. We're literally forced to use specific software to teach them, specific books. We are forced to use Chromebooks. I hate Chromebooks with a passion. It pisses me off so bad. But being an artist gave me the tools I needed to be creative in the different ways in which I could reach out to them and expand their minds, just being open to other stuff, aside from teaching them how to read, write, use commas, claim, evidence, all that jazz. Aside from that, using my theatrical background, using my background as an artist, and encouraging them to engage in creativity and artistry has really, I think, been the gateway to them succeeding more in their like basic education. I really think also, this isn't like a change. It's something I've always thought, or I've thought for a long time, but it's been reinforced. We all begin as artists. We've been playing pretend since day school. We've been drawing random scribbles and calling it like whatever since we were kids. We all know that baby bop where they just bounce at the knees to the rhythm. Like, we've been artists since we were kids. I think I think being an artist is just as necessary as being generally, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like well-versed, but like generally understanding some of the core curriculum stuff.
I love how you're also getting into talking about, like, Yada, you were saying earlier, that the work is for others, that what we're creating, what we're doing, how we're navigating what we do is often for others, for community, for collective. So, in what ways do you imagine your art affecting other people, or what do you want your art to do for other people?
I want everyone to feel normal within reason. And when I say within reason, I wouldn't want anybody with violent thoughts watching Dahmer and going, oh, maybe that's the answer. But, one of the things I love about acting is it's one of the few places, and possibly one of the only places, where the ugliest parts of ourselves, the things that we're most ashamed of, are celebrated. You know, people come to see it. We're not interested in a play where everybody makes the right decision, everybody says the right thing and does the right thing. Nobody's interested in that story because that's not for real. I think that it's imperative that we gain more empathy. And what I would hope is that through my artwork or through me encouraging others to engage in their own creativity, even if you're not sharing it with people, right? Just engage in your own creativity, because it creates that well of empathy that I think we all need in order to be better people.
I would certainly say when I step to doing projects that I'm doing, when I imagine projects that I want to create, when I step on stage, when I'm doing whatever I do, a big portion of how I hope that my art would affect other people is in two ways, in that people feel seen in a way that, not just as, seeing the pretty things and feeling wholly celebrated, but being seen authentically and being acknowledged for what they can recognize as a human quality, and not just like, oh, that person is like super fabulous, like this, blah, 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 but that there's actual things in the stories that we step towards telling that someone feels like, oh, that's me, or like that's a thing that I get, or that's someone I know. Like, I would hope that people feel seen when they step to the work, and I also ultimately hope that people feel empowered by the art that I do. Because there are so many ways, at least within specifically American culture, that people are taught to be disempowered. We are taught to give our thoughts to other people. We are taught to be followers and not leaders. We are taught to be people who work well in systems, but not necessarily within our individuality. And so when I step to my work, I would hope that people can see the challenge that is that work, can see the difficulty and the craft that goes into creating that, and that in that small way, people can feel like they can expand into being whatever they would like to be. Like, even if they're not a person who's like, oh, I want to go out and do a bunch of art, if they're a person that's just like, you know what, yep, I'm gonna ask my boss for a raise. Yes, I want you to have that feeling. I want you to walk through the world with your head high. Like, I want women to feel important. I want Black people and POC to feel important. Like, I want people to feel as if they can take up space in a way that is not overarching or crushing to anyone else, but that is just who they are. And I feel like as long as I'm contributing to doing work like that, that's what I could hope for. That's what I could wish for. Like, I just think it's such a beautiful feeling to feel whole in that way, and I want other people to experience that same feeling too.
A lot of the work that I do is with kids, and like, I'm from Cleveland. I moved to California for grad school at UCI. But like, a lot of the work that I did before I got to California was just with kids, and in specific kids that are underserved, kids from my community. And for me, I think one thing that I've always really strived to do with my art is to build community through creative processes. So like, if we put on a play, we put on a play. If we're outside drawing with chalk on the sidewalk, we're doing that. Or if we're having a I don't know, a fashion show, like we're doing that, any kind of creative process, my goal was to always give the kids something to do. And I think that we get that in theater and in music. Like there are so many different roles to be taken on that it makes the idea of power less complex to kids. Because I think it is something that's complex to children. Like, oh, you mean I get to do this? Like, yes, you do. And you're going to do a really good job at it. But I think sometimes it's confusing for kids, especially kids who live a life where they don't have a whole lot of options on what they can and cannot do. And so for me, I've always pushed building community, whatever that looks like, through creating something. And I've seen it have a really big impact. And I think that's a part of why I keep doing what I do for even adults now, because it's like, I mean, half the time it's like you wouldn't even have met this person if you weren't a part of this orchestra or if you weren't a part of this play. You wouldn't know that all of these different types of people and all of these different types of lived experiences happen right in your community, right down the street. So yeah, for me, it's really building community through creative processes.
I I feel like I'm a product of mentors and teachers with that mentality. Because I'm an only child with a single parent, and when she was at work, I was in after school care where what we did, we had chorus, maybe acting class here. If you weren't on stage, you were helping somebody put a costume on or doing makeup. And I feel like it opened me up to who I am as a person. I always say that artists are like the historians of the human race. And it's our job it's our job not to lie. And in that we have this it's weight. I feel like it's heavy for a lot of people because of the pressure, but when it's for children, it's so freeing and open. And I give credit to every woman, especially the women in my life, who gave me free vocal lessons because that was crazy. Getting free vocal lessons, getting free guitar lessons, tap shoes given to me when I couldn't afford it. Like my teachers changed my life. So I love that y'all are doing that because it really down the line it changes our lives for real.
Alexis, you ate that. The arts are the historians of you. You ate that. That is a bar. You ate that. What you just said, though, I feel the exact same way because there's two women, and I'm gonna make these stories brief because I'm a brief because I'm a certified yapper, so I'm gonna try to. I was kind of a dickhead when I was younger. When I was a teenager, like, of course, all teenagers can be a little whatever, right? I was especially dickheadish as a kid. And it was my English/theater club teacher who I can only describe it as being stern enough to make sure she told me about myself, but kind enough to like, she was in like all the years of being, a kid in public education. I had experienced so many teachers not empathize with the fact that I was a child and a, learning, growing, developing person, human being, figuring things out with her own set of history and issues and whatever, right? She was the only one that gave me just the space I needed to make my mistakes and grow. Of course, emphasis on and grow. She gave me the space to make those mistakes and grow. But she was always I feel like the artists in my life have always kept me grounded in reality. And some might think that that's, I guess some people may consider it contradictory because, some people consider artists to be the most like head in the clouds people ever. But I would say in a world where nobody wants to be for real, it is like my fellow artists who like are the most not just honest with me, but honest with themselves and the most genuine. And I would say even when it comes to so I am obviously like high yellow, very much so biracial mixed. And being in Norfolk and going to predominantly Black schools, there was a lot that I was not experiencing. Like there was just a lot that I did not have to deal with. And it wasn't until I got to the predominantly white performing arts school that I went to that I was like, oh, this is what they were talking about. I knew it was real. I knew it existed, but I was 14 going to this arts high school where there was mostly, you know, where there was mostly white people, specifically affluent white people, where I was like, for the first time, like othered, like actively othered. And it was the only other Black woman in the space who was the principal that stuck her neck out time and time again. And I just feel like, again, it was just one of those moments of artist to artist, of course, specifically her being a Black woman and an artist, artist to artist, just seeing me and giving me the room to develop. And she really was the reason I ever developed any sort of value in my own opinion and speaking up for myself and having any sort of autonomy. And I feel like those women especially, but many artists in my life that mentored me, it is the reason I do what I do now.
I love how you're talking about your journey and how it may have started in one place and is arriving at another space, or that space that it was met with, and then to now currently where you're at. And I think I can ask the group as a whole, if there's advice, if there are words or thoughts or things to carry, that you would extend to a younger version of yourself, just the artist stepping through the journey. What might you extend to your past self? I would say, if I were speaking to my younger self or my younger past experience, I think I would, number one, say slow down. I think I would say slow down. There was just so much that I tried to rush through, that I tried to get through, and I'm very grateful for that journey and where it's left me now. But I was trying to rush through super rigorous programs in middle school and in high school, and rushing through AP classes, and I needed to go to college immediately. There was no gap year for me. As soon as I finished undergrad, I needed to go to grad school immediate. I need to do it now. There was no sense of breathe in the middle of it. And I think moving through a journey in that capacity not only breeds burnout, but it also gave me a harder time of being able to soak in what I had to give as an artist, as opposed to what were the many hoops that I was jumping through in order to get up to what my idea of success was. And when I crossed the stage every time, when I got a position every time, they started to just feel like notches on a belt. It didn't feel like I've done it, I did it, and I've arrived. So I think I would tell myself to slow down and soak a little bit more, because if I would have, in a couple more instances, I think that it would be easier to hear my own voice. And I've always had a super strong connection to God and been close with God in whatever I do in my whole entire life. And I feel like if I would have slowed down in many ways, I would have been able to hear my own gift of intuition, to be able to move through my art in a more intentional way. Not that the work that I've done hasn't been intentional, but I just feel like it could be richer with a breath in the middle of it. So I would tell my younger self to just slow down a little bit, just breathe in the middle of it.
I love that. I feel like that was really well said, well put. I think for me, I thought two Bible verses came to mind. I don't know if it's okay. Can I read them or? Okay. All right. So I feel like a lot of the times when I was younger, or just like going through this journey of acting, getting into acting, because I didn't do it as a kid. I got into it in college. So it was kind of late compared to everyone else who was in the plays, who had done it since they were 7. And a lot of the times I would be super worried about, okay, but what do I do next? Or what's going to come next after I graduated? Okay, what do I do now? Where do I find auditions? I don't have an agent. I don't know this person. Who's a casting director? I don't, and obviously what I know now, if I knew it then, I probably would have handled things a lot more calmer, or like you said, slower, just like enjoying the moment and like, taking everything in. And so one of the verses is Jeremiah 29:11, and it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And when I learned that verse, I was like, oh, wait, hold on, that's a promise. And so if that's the promise that God has for me, like, why am I worrying? And I was like, gosh, if I had known that then, I probably would have spent a lot less time worrying, okay, what's next? What's next? And the other verse, this is one of my favorites, John 13:7. And it says, Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing." I'm getting goosebumps, "but later you will understand." And so that was something that I would always remind myself when something didn't go my way, when I didn't get that job, when I didn't, when something failed, when I was trying really hard at something and it just didn't happen. And I'm like, wait, no, okay, maybe it didn't work out right now, but it wasn't for me. It was for that person. That person was supposed to get the job. It wasn't going to do for my career what it's going to do for them. God has something better for me. I don't understand now, but later I will. And it always happens that way. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but like when things don't go our way and then we get that better thing, we're like, oh, damn, thank God that thing didn't work out because I wouldn't have gotten to this. Amen. That's it.
I piggyback? I feel like that's so good, and thank you, because every no led me to a perfect yes. And that's how my mama always says that. You don't want anybody else's win because it's like you don't want anyone else's gold because it will be sand in your hands. And it's like, no, I don't. Like that, so that's good. Yeah, I kind of want to run around in my room. I will shout. So for me, what I would tell younger Lex is just to have grace with yourself. I feel like I took everything so serious. It was not kind to myself in this process. I feel like we're always in draft. I love that you said that earlier. Like draft is, I think that's where artistry lies. And me, I'm a perfectionist, so I took some things and too serious and was not good to me. And now I'm like, be gracious and graceful with yourself.
These are all so like relatable, and just for me, I would just tell myself like, girl, you need to relax. You are not Beyonce. Like I think a lot of, maybe we all had similar trajectories. Like I was an MT in undergrad, and there's just this whole world of like how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to perform. And then I got my MFA in acting, and I just was like so committed to fulfilling what I thought those positions or those degrees were requiring of me, that I didn't have, I didn't pay enough attention to other things that were going on in my life. Like, I wish I would have spent more time with my grandmother before she passed away. Like, I wish I would have spent more time with my sister before she passed away. Like, I was so focused on being an MT, like going to tap class. Like I was so focused on those things that I still really love, that I just forgot about everything else. And it hit me like a brick when last year, when I still was going hard even last year. And then all of a sudden I got preeclampsia and my life stopped. Like it was like, you're done. Like I got a phone call. I was literally teaching a class and my doctor was like, my OBGYN was like, no, you got to go home right now. I just got your blood work back. And so I think that this last year, literally my son turns 1 tomorrow. So I think that this last year of my life has been like, it literally has felt like I got hit with a brick. Like, oh my gosh, I have not spent enough time thinking about the things that really, really, really matter to me in my life. And so I would just say, girl, sit down, go have Sunday breakfast and dinner with your family, and think about everything else later. Yeah, worry about tomorrow. That's what I would say.
uplifting and sending love to everything everyone's saying in the room. I'm just over here like when two or three gathered, so will he be in the midst. And I just have like I feel like I'm also in the process of I know this moment of my life. There's always a moment in our lives where we're like going to look back and say, I could have given you advice for this, X, Y, and Z. But right now, I am living a moment in my life where I know I'm gonna have some things to say when I return and look back. This is what I would have said in this moment. And um, oh, I would tell my younger self or the self that existed before this very minute at 5:44 p.m. EST. Be in your body and do what you are called to do and move like you're protected. I just want to uplift this Bible verse because yeah, I'm feeling inspired over here. The New Living Translation, but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength and they will soar high on wings like eagles, and they will run and not grow weary, they will walk and not faint. And I feel like I am quite literally in a moment where I am trusting on this specific passage. I just completed a bodybuilding competition and I'm about to prepare for a surgery before another competition. So I'm like, hey, yo, Lord, I'ma trust you. I know in this you say I will run, even with XYZ looking like this, and I have doubts and fears XYZ, you say I will run. I will not grow weary. My strength will be renewed. And so I know when I look back and say, Angelique, Miss Girl, why was you out here sweating your edges out? Why was you sweating your edges out? When you know you're divinely protected, move like it. And when you move like it, you're gonna move and show up in the room the way that you were supposed to. So I'm just really leaning in and channeling that.
And I feel like I'm in a space where like everything that y'all have mentioned is something that I'm actively learning right now. Everything from slow down. I've been sat down in more ways than one, including like recently finding out that I tore my ACL 2 years ago. It's been torn so long that my body has reabsorbed the fibers and I've just been living like that. So now I got to get surgery on Tuesday. So me and Angelique twins over here at this point, really, we both getting ready for surgery. But sat down in more ways than one. And I feel like if there's like an immediate piece of advice that comes to mind, it would be I would tell my younger self, specifically my like preteen self, to not take things so personal. Maybe even not take anything personal. That the things that people give you, you don't gotta go, oh, this is for me, like this is mine now because you're handing it to me, I have to take it. I would tell younger me, don't take things so personal. Definitely also not take things so serious. Um, and to let, I would like, I feel like the ultimate advice I would give myself is to let go, even though I know she still wouldn't do it. Um, I would definitely tell myself to just let go. Right now, God has been wrecking my plans left and right. And I'm glad he's doing it because every time I see how his plan unfolds, I'm like, oh yeah, this is way better than what I thought. It was way better than what I was gonna do. Um, yeah, it would, but the what I would tell younger self for sure, probably immediately, would be like, just don't take it so personal, girl. Like people going through their own shit, they're gonna say what they say to you, they're gonna view you how they view you, like in every aspect of your life. Just do not take things personal. It don't matter who it is, just don't take it personal.
I love that. I love that each of us is also talk towards like who we are and who we've been and who we will be is always going to be enough. Uh, the way we show up with each other, the way we show up in our own lives is enough to still be doing the thing. We're all expanding and moving through our careers, our relationships, our connections to ourselves, and, however, we move through faith. But as we continue through those things, that we just are enough in the middle of all of it. Um, this looks like a lovely space to wrap us up.
One last thing I would add to mine super quick. I would also say, do not take that man back.
Sure.
That's the last thing I would tell myself. Let it go to mute.
Yeah, again, to each of you, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for gathering together and agreeing to be a part of this roundtable, because hearing each of us speak our own truths encourages other people to do the same thing, to have their own spaces, to have their own gatherings and all these things. So thank you all for being here today. Now, all of us have to get to Virginia and the DMV and get a good meal, see some theater, shoot some pool, the whole thing. Thank you for sharing so many gems, so much grace, and for your candor. It's been a gift to have you all here, and we will be sure to keep us connected so we can keep us supported and uplifted. Of course, we can't forget to thank you for stopping in to listen to the roundtable and for joining us here at Billiards. Your support is not lost on us. Check out the full episode and all things Billiards VMSOA on our website, www.billiardsvmsoa.com. If you'd like to keep an eye out for these wonderful artists and their endeavors, we'll make their information available. So be sure to follow them to continue supporting their journeys as well. Until next time, stay inspired, stay creative, and always meet us back at the roundtable. Happy Juneteenth! Remember, Virginia and the DMV, not just a place for lovers, but a sanctuary for dreamers.